Here is our agenda for today. We're covering 4 critical pillars for your general studies papers: regional border security dynamics, the geography of the monsoon advance, energy economics and pricing, private sector investment trends, and finally, ecology and species reintroduction. Starting right off with general studies papers 2 and 3, regional border security dynamics, specifically analyzing our border management with Bangladesh. Okay, so a really fundamental concept you need to grasp here is the zero line. When we talk about international borders, the physical fence isn't always sitting right on the exact territorial limit. By international convention, physical fencing is actually supposed to be erected at least 150 yards inward from the actual zero line. Keep this 150-yard rule locked in your memory, because it's the exact reason behind the current civilian protests happening in Meghalaya right now. From a mains perspective, you have to note how the state's 444-kilometer border presents some very unique socioeconomic challenges. Erecting a fence 150 yards inward literally threatens to geographically isolate border settlements. Take Lingkong Village in the East Khasi Hills, for example. The residents there are demanding the fence be built exactly on the zero line. Why? Because if it follows that 150-yard convention, their entire village gets left outside the security barrier, stranded right between the fence and Bangladesh. It's a textbook example of the friction between national security protocols and on-the-ground human realities. Moving over to the West Bengal stretch, let's see how this builds on our security discussion. The administration here is highly focused on factual security measures. Around 4,800 illegal immigrants have already been deported to Bangladesh from holding centers, with 836 more waiting. On top of that, the state government has handed over 100 kilometers of land to the BSF to erect new fencing. This highlights an absolutely vital strategic priority for us: securing the Siliguri corridor, which you all know as the Chicken's Neck. This narrow, 22-kilometer wide strip connects the rest of India with our northeastern states, so securing it is paramount. All right, shifting to General Studies Paper 1, the geography of the monsoon advance, and why the Northeast is defying El Niño. Recent field reports, backed up by the IMD, confirm that the southwest monsoon is actively advancing across the Northeast. Yeah, it was a tiny bit delayed compared to the normal June 5th onset, but it's now expected to blanket the entire region in the next 3 to 4 days. As you know, this is a make-or-break economic indicator for our rain-fed agrarian economy. Now, a massive concern for India this year is the El Niño phenomenon, which almost always suppresses our monsoon rains. So you might be wondering, why is the Northeast actually forecast to get normal or even above normal rainfall? The secret is in the geography. Despite that strong global El Niño threat, the Northeast's incredibly varied mountainous topography and its dense, extensive forest cover act as a natural, massive buffer. These highly localized, favorable climatic conditions shield the region, guaranteeing enough precipitation for our agriculture. That's a brilliant conceptual point you definitely want to remember for your geography prelims. Let's shift gears to economy now: energy, economics, and pricing, and how we're shielding consumers from global oil shocks. You've probably read the headlines about the recent price increase, taking the cost of a 14.2 kilogram domestic LPG cylinder to Rs 942. Now, while consumers are definitely facing a slight hike, the government's economic data points to a very different macro narrative. Our retail prices remain heavily modulated and are actually among the lowest anywhere in the world, especially when you compare them to how high actual import costs have soared recently. Here's a golden fact for your prelims. India's LPG import costs are strictly tied to the Saudi contract price, or CP. This is the international benchmark tracking that 50-50 propane-butane blend we use every day. Because of all the geopolitical disruptions in West Asia, and specifically the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, this benchmark has spiked a staggering 46% just since February. A direct comparison of the domestic and commercial sectors shows us exactly how this macroeconomy is being managed. Your domestic cylinder costs Rs 9042, right? But the actual import-linked cost is over $1,600. The government, along with state-run oil companies, is absorbing this huge gap, which translates to a massive under-recovery approaching 60,000 crore. Now, in stark contrast, look at the commercial 19-kilogram cylinders used by restaurants. They're priced at over $3,113. Why the huge difference? Because commercial pricing is a direct, unmodulated pass-through of that international benchmark, plus it carries higher taxes. So the public exchequer takes the hit to shield domestic households, while the commercial sector faces the true, unshielded reality of the global market. Staying on the economy, let's look at private sector investment trends. we're seeing a real surge in capital formation. If you're closely tracking India's growth story, these numbers from a recent SBI Research Echo Wrap report are going to make you very optimistic. Private sector investment announcements surged from Rs 37 lakh crore in the previous financial year to a phenomenal Rs 56 lakh crore in FY26. And get this, total investment announcements across all sectors actually touched Rs 80 lakh crore. This shows a massive, growing confidence among businesses regarding India's economic prospects. The investment cycle is seriously picking up momentum. For prelims, you've got to pay close attention to the sectorial breakdown here. Where is all this money actually going? Well, manufacturing led the charge with a 28.9% share, followed right on its heels by power at 28.7%, and then building infrastructure at 23.1%. This heavy, targeted spending on long-term assets is exactly what drove the 10.8% expansion in gross fixed capital formation during the fourth quarter. Simply put, businesses aren't just making announcements, they are actively putting real money into machinery, equipment, and infrastructure. Finally, let's pivot to General Studies Paper 3, Environment and Ecology. We're looking at a major, heartwarming conservation milestone, the homecoming of the pygmy hog. The recent release of 15 captive-bred pygmy hogs into the Kerbiel grasslands is a tremendous success story for the Pygmy Hog Conservation Program, right here in Assam. And I call it a homecoming for a very specific reason. The original founder population for this entire conservation breeding program was actually captured from these exact same Kerbiel grasslands many years ago. There hadn't been any confirmed signs of them in Kerbiel for 9 long years, until today. Make sure you have these specific facts locked down for your exams. The pygmy hog, or Porcula sylvania, is literally the world's smallest and rarest wild pig. It sits firmly on the IUCN Red List as endangered. Since 2020, a total of 78 of these amazing animals have been successfully released back into Manas National Park. But remember, this successful reintroduction isn't just about saving a single species. It acts as a vital indicator that we are restoring health to the entire grassland ecosystem. It's a perfect case study of collaborative habitat restoration in a globally important biodiversity hotspot. To wrap up today's explainer, I want you to apply everything we've just covered. Think deeply about this main-style practice question. Discuss the challenges of balancing national border security protocols with the socioeconomic realities of local communities residing near the zero line. How can the administration mitigate these localized grievances? This ties the geographic and security concepts from the Meghalaya border protests together perfectly. Take a screenshot, sit down, and attempt to structure an answer in your notebooks tonight. Keep studying hard, stay laser-focused on your goals, and I will see you in our next masterclass.